Hey, what up, though? People, welcome back. It's Wake Up Woodward. We got the entire starting five plus a six-man and coach of the year. About to be coach of the year. Shout out to that dude, Justin. We got KG on the ones and twos in the sound booth. Woodward Sports MVP. JB Smooth in the TD booth. Matt Broder, our credentialed Tigers and Lions reporter for the network. Shout out to him. And up on the desk, we got the vet of the squad, vet of the network, Flannel Sam.
Oh, yeah.
And Brandon Dent, Detroit Kool-Aid, your credentialed Pistons reporter and writer. I need you guys to go ahead and satisfy that like button. Treat it right. Treat it right. You ready to talk to him?
Oh, yeah.
Let's go, Black Hollywood.
You know it's Wednesday. I know you feeling good, but go ahead and make that like button feel good. Hey.
Satisfy that like button.
Real nice and real smooth.
And let it swallow you
Caresser.
up. Wait, what?
What? Pause.
All right. Detroit Pistons.
Don't know what happened.
All right, look, we got to talk about these Detroit Pistons. I wanted to be able to have a Detroit Pistons outlook. We've gotten through Summer League. We've gotten through the draft. We've gotten through free agency. And just to kind of settle where things are at as it relates to the Pistons, they chose not to sign, who was it? I believe Simone Fontecchio with the room exception. And so he was signed into the cap space. A couple other players as well. So they still have the room exception, which is, I believe, $7.9 million, as well as $11 million in cap space. But for all intents and purposes, it seems like the Detroit Pistons might be done making moves at the current moment. But I wanted to be able to talk about some of the questions because we all think that they've improved. And I wanted to be able to flip this around on you guys. I want to be able to get the biggest questions that you guys believe are facing the Detroit Pistons. And I'm going to start, but obviously when it gets to you, we cannot repeat the same question. Make us think, make us dig. Let's really get into where the Pistons are as a team, because at the end of this thing, and when we wrap with Rod, we're going to have to ask ourselves, is this team a lot better than what we saw last year?
Yeah.
Yes, they won 14, but we know that there's some factors. They were not really a 14-win team, and what do we expect out of these Pistons going forward? And I believe that obviously one of the biggest questions is the Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey fit. Jaden Ivey is a guy who we've seen him handle this team effectively, and we thought going into year two that Monty Williams was going to put him in a position to be able to succeed. Be able to kind of handle the reins next to Cade Cunningham and be not necessarily a Robin, but maybe even a 1B to Cade Cunningham. And that got thwarted out the gates. I'm talking about training camp, being able to ask Monty Williams, how are these young guards looking? And he just, for whatever reason, offered up Killian Hayes. And we all thought it was a joke. But I want to be able to get your take on kind of this Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey thing. But I'm going to be able to enter into the record JB Bickerstaff's comments as well. He said, I want to take firsthand notes and get two of these guys together before I make any decisions or any declarations to you guys about how we'll use them and what we'll do with them, Bickerstaff said. But believing in their talent and their skill set, there's going to be plenty of ways that we can use them so that they'll be difficult for opponents to match with. So they're definitely committed to it, at least for what it sounds like. But the fit overall, I think that's the biggest question right now facing this team.
Yeah, and I have my doubts. I'm not going to lie. I've coined a new term for what I think Jaden Ivey has. I think he has Cade envy. I don't think he has the desire to play alongside Cade. I think he wants to be Cade.
That's
I think he
That's
experienced
bold.
that season that he had where Cade Cunningham missed 70+ games and got all of the usage rate he could ever want. And I wouldn't say it got to his head. I think that's how he naturally enjoys playing the game. I actually think that's when he's at his best. The problem is that Cade Cunningham does it much, much better. He's taller. He's a better passer. He's a better shooter. He's a better defender. I think he's a smarter player. I think he plays with better pace. I think he's got that brain for it where he's just knows where everybody is on the floor. I think Jaden Ivey is more of a what you would call a transition demon, for which he is. He's better in transition, at least in terms of his athleticism. But I think that Ivey has Cade envy. And another wrinkle to it is that at least this season, Trajan Langdon brought in a couple of shooting guards in Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley, who I think are better in terms of fit-wise, skill set-wise next to Cade and would help them win more this year. Malik Beasley shot over 40% from three and started 79 games for the Bucks last year, alongside Giannis and Brook Lopez and Middleton and Dame Lillard.
we might be underestimating that signing because that can't be understated. He started 79 games on a Bucks team that had NBA championship expectations,
and they would have gotten farther if Giannis didn't get hurt.
Yeah,
they might have made the Eastern Conference Finals if Giannis doesn't get hurt.
We talk about the types of vets you want in the squad.
Yeah,
he's going to play, and he has the experience. He's been a part of these types of runs. But just to kind of back up a little bit of what you're saying, when you look at some of these stats, and shout out to B-Ball Index on X, top 10 guards and playmaking talent. Number 1, this hurts, Tyrese Halliburton, Trae Young, Luka Doncic, James Harden, TJ McConnell, Cade Cunningham, Devin Booker, Scotty Barnes, Josh Giddey, Darius Garland. Top 10 guards and finishing talent. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, that's not a surprise. RJ Barrett, Tyrese Maxey, Anthony Edwards, Cade Cunningham, Luka, De'Aaron Fox, Colin Sexton, TJ McConnell, Kyrie Irving. And it's going to be an interesting theme here when we get to the end of these lists. Top 10 in lob passing creation rate. Trae Young, Luka, Chris Middleton, Cade Cunningham, James Harden, Spencer Dinwiddie, Trey Jones, Nikola Jokic, Talon Horton-Tucker, and LeBron James. And you know what's interesting about all those lists to me? First of all, Cade Cunningham is really, really good.
Yeah.
So it just kind of backs up a little bit more of what you're saying, even if people can't see beyond the losing. But as those lists, as I continue to read them, I was like, these lists are changing wildly. But Cade Cunningham continued to be one of the most consistent players, guards, across every single one of these top 10 lists. Some of these guys aren't in them. We didn't hear LeBron until the last list.
Yeah, and I want to respond to one thing that Matthew Kruger said, because you hear it a lot about Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham's a turnover machine. You know who led the NBA in turnovers per game this year? Luka Doncic. You're done. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. You're dead. So Luka Doncic sucks too, right, Matthew Kruger? Right. God, I love you, man, but you have some of the worst takes on the show in the chat. Anywho, no, but one thing about Cade Cunningham, and I think this is something that gets undersold, is that in basketball, in NBA basketball, what is one of the reasons why Shaq was so good? What is one of the reasons that LeBron was so great? They have physical advantages. Cade Cunningham has physical advantages that Jaden Ivey does not have. And in terms of his playmaking, Cade Cunningham was top 10 in the NBA in assists last year. I never can foresee that from Jaden Ivey. He did an all right job.
With no shooters, bro.
Yeah, with no shooters. He probably could have had 8 or 9 if he had better shooters, or even if you had a healthier Boyan at the beginning of the season. But even with all of that, he was top 10 in the NBA in assists. I just think that Cade Cunningham is the one, even if it gets to be a little heliocentric at times, he's the one that I want the ball in his hands. I don't trust that Jaden Ivey wants to necessarily fit with Cade. And I see people saying, like, you don't know that. No, I don't. I'm just making observations. I think the storm of him having that season where he got all the usage rate in the world, compounded with getting put on the bench by Monty Williams, that was bad, I think, for Jaden Ivey's overall development if he wants to fit with Cade.
I'm glad to see him growing the hair back out, too. I know people thought that a little bit of the aura went away when they cut off the dreads. He is growing them back. It was cool to see it down at Summer League. And you know what? Let's kind of go around and put a bow on this question. And as we get the legend on the line in the next segment, I want to be able to continue these questions. So let's think of what's the next most important question for the Pistons after this. But Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, just really quickly, are you starting them together to see what you got, or are you staggering them?
Stagger. I want Jaden Ivey running the first-team point guard, but go on. Yeah.
No, I'm just going to go around the room. Yeah, definitely. If you have more to expand on that.
I'm good.
JB?
I'd probably stagger him.
Stagger him?
If I'm being honest.
Broder?
Stagger.
Ooh. KG?
Absolutely stagger. He's not starting on my team. He's a 6-man.
You know what? I'm going to save my answer for after the break, and we got to get rods, and let's get some of these questions going. But thank you guys for tapping in with Wake Up Woodward every day, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. You already know the Woo Crew appreciates it, so make sure you guys are hitting that like button and staying tapped in with the rest of Woodward Sports. You see the logo right there. After us, Big D Energy from 11 to 1. You got the 4-time Stanley Cup champion D-Mac with the golden voice Neil Rule. After that, 2 to 4, Armani and Edwards with Mass. The lovable radio legend Tom Mazaway, alongside University of Michigan legend and former NFL wide receiver Braylon Edwards in Detroit. DK-Laws got your back. Woodward Sports got your back. You already know Soroki's got your back for lunch. Take care of yourself, man. Treat yourself nice. And JB Smooth, this came to me, man. Can we get a poll up, stagger or start? What do people want to see with Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey? And I know we got the legend on the line. I'm going to give my answer when we get him on, get his answer. Getting the Rod's thoughts. And then I hope at least Flannel, KG, one of you guys, Broder, JB, has the next question that we're going to ask.
Oh, yeah.
The most pressing question after the K and I.
All right.
So, all right. Let's get this drum roll going so we can welcome the legend on appropriately. Hey, yo! Shout out and welcome to the legend, Detroit News Rod Beard. Hey, welcome to the show, brothers. Good to see you. Sound. I like your Eastern shirt.
That's like 3 in a row, man. I love it. He on a hot streak.
Maybe he's got.
We'll get it right.
Yeah,
we'll get it right because you know what? I'll share mine.
Yeah,
kind of taking a page out of what JB Bickerstaff was talking about, wanting to see how these guys are, wanting to see who they are as players. I don't know if that's an assessment that can be done just during training camp, and I want to see them being put in their best position to succeed. One thing that I really liked about the Summer League team, and I know it's the Summer League, but I do believe it's something you can extrapolate because it's plays. This team has a few different offensive wrinkles and ways that they execute them that lead me to believe maybe they can work. And I would rather see this thing happen during the regular season when there's not high expectation, just to know what we do have in Jaden Ivey. But then it's like I do understand giving him the reins, letting him go with the second unit. I just believe since JB Bickerstaff is committed to no all-bench lineups, Cade Cunningham is somebody that I wouldn't mind seeing coming out of the game earlier and let Jaden Ivey stay in to handle those lead guard duties while they start together.
Yeah, and I certainly understand the no all bench lineups thing because we saw what happened last year. However, when you look at, and I'm not saying it should happen every game or that it would work, but if you're looking at the bench for the Pistons this season, it might potentially be one where you could have a mostly bench lineup for a few minutes on the time at the floor. You could have Jaden Ivey. You could have Tim Hardaway Jr. or Malik Beasley. You could have Isaiah Stewart. I mean, whether or not Fontecchio starts, Paul Reed. I mean, it would be a more talented bench than the one that they had last year. Ron Holland or Asar, whoever doesn't start. So, but it's not ideal, but I'm just saying it would be better than last year.
And before we get into this next question, what I want to be able to also do is give you the opportunity, all of us, to be able to talk about the player we do believe Jaden Ivey to be, because it's not like anyone's saying, give up on Jaden Ivey, he's trash. You know, despite the fact that I want to see him start, you know, everyone is comfortable seeing him stagger. I want to be able to get into that a little bit more because you believe in his ability to be able to run that second unit, not just at a backup guard level, but at a level of a player that could potentially be starting.
Well, and also not so sure that Sasser can play point guard. That's another, just throwing that out there.
I wanted to see more out of something.
But that's it's not a Sasser conversation. It's just the necessity might be there for Jaden Ivey to be that second unit point guard.
Mm-hmm. Man, we're going to see if we got the legend back on.
I don't think it's working for you, Rod. We can't hear your
maybe can he call or?
Yeah, I was about to say we can try the phone.
Let's try the phone. We'll do the phone.
Yesterday.
I want his perspective on this Ivy and Cade talk. Chat family, I need you guys' perspective on Cade and Ivy as well. I've seen a lot of people who still believe in this, but I've seen a lot more people, more than ever, comfortable now with this stagger approach as it relates to Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. But what's that second question, man? We'll get that teed up.
Yes. All right. So the question that I want to ask, the one that I found the most intriguing was, and I want to go to you, Broder, first.
Ooh.
Is it scared, not stoked, picking sub 25 wins for this team based on this roster? So you're basically saying 24 wins or less. If you're picking that, are you scared or are you realistic? Or do you have a right to be scared? Answer in any way that you may.
I think you have a right to be scared, but I do think it is scared, not stoked. Like, to me, I'm trying to erase the last two seasons, and especially last season, from my mind when I make or when I start to look at this team, look at this roster. It is a completely different team, completely different front office. So I'm trying to channel that, and it would seem 25 wins normally is a bad season. So I'm thinking they can definitely get there. Like, Spenny, I can't get past the comment Spenny made a week or two ago. It was like, man, they should at least win double their amount of games. They got to win 28. So I'm in that 25 to 30 range, and I'm cool with that. I think it would be a failure less than 24. Was that the number?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. I think it is scared, not stoked. but I think fans have a right to be scared. There's a little bit of
they've been
when you
burned.
think about last year, it's just hard to picture. All right, man, what's good basketball look like again?
Because we saw moves that we thought were going to work that we saw fall flat on their face.
Flat.
And I think that's where it's at right now. So we're looking at, okay, they got shooters. We know Beasley can start for the Bucks and make an impact. Is that something we can definitely trust is going to happen here with the Pistons, which is what I believe makes people a little bit more hesitant. The things that do make me optimistic is that we have, I believe, the right basketball minds, cohesion in that front office, one voice, it is Trajan Langdon's, a coaching staff that looks like they are excited and ecstatic to be here. And shout out to Chris Platty as well, who he hit me up last night. I love our Pistons conversations that we get into via text message. And he sent me and reminded me of this article, and he said he was talking to JB about it too. Just the culture thing, because we're trying to figure out what type of coach he'll be. And then he brought this kind of culture chain in there, and whoever the player of the game was, or like the most important player that would give that chain. And after one of the games, because of how much they vibed with him, they gave it to him. Yeah. And it's like, I'm looking forward to that because that's what makes me optimistic. These teams, these young guys, they've been playing with vets who probably didn't want to be here. Tobias Harris was racing here. Tim Hardaway Jr. he's happy to be here. Yeah. Do some back channels. Like some of these, I'm sure you probably know, Broder. Like, these are guys that want to be here. Bickerstaff wants to be here. I got to talk to Luke Walton. I got to talk to Kevin Burleson. These guys are happy to be here, which makes it a world's difference. So I do believe it gives us a little bit more, and then the players, you're supporting them properly. Hopefully it works out on the floor.
Well, and that's why I think we're all optimistic and think that this team will win 25+, because it was an organizational overhaul from the front office to the coaching staff to the free agents and trades pieces that they brought in. It seems like this is a team with a direction that really values three-point shooting, that values getting good fits around Cade, that values playing better defense. I don't blame you if you're scared, because how excited were we the day after draft night when during the draft where they picked Cade, not Cade, but Cade as well, but Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. Yeah. We were all wilding out and just saying Troy Weaver's a genius, Troy Weaver's a master at the draft. Same with Cade Cunningham. And hell, I think a lot of us liked the Killian Hayes, Sadiq Bey, and Isaiah Stewart 2020 draft. But what did it result in? Some of the worst record-wise teams in Pistons history for 4 consecutive years. So the fact that there seems to be a overhaul from that the house was cleaned, gives more optimism for a lot of people. However, if you're not a little scared, you don't have feeling, because we've been burned a lot lately. I'm just saying.
It's justified.
Yeah.
You know what? We got to get the opinions of the legend on, if we got them by phone, on both the lineup, Cade and Jaden. We got the poll going right now, stagger or start. And then we also got to talk about how much better is this team really?
Absolutely. But how about first you tell us about Lady James?
We'll do that, and we'll get the legend on in the next segment. Hey, awesome is when a guy can be a guy and get an amazing haircut. FAP is in the building. What up, though?
Who did that?
All that breathing.
Welcome back to Wake Up Woodward. It is Wednesday, so you guys already know Woodward Pistons Wednesdays here.
Oh, yeah.
We got a whole lot of Lions that we're going to be getting into today and the rest of the week. But right now, we got to talk about this squad, the outlook moving forward for the Detroit Pistons. And two of the biggest questions right now. Is this team much better because of all of the additions as well as the fit of Cade and Jaden Ivey? And I want to be able to get the legend in on this as well. Are you with us, Mr. Rod Beard?
I am.
Hey, dope. Yeah, listen, we've been kind of kicking this around as it relates to Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham. I'm outnumbered here. The crew believes that they should definitely be staggered. But I got to get your thoughts on this as well. Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey. JB Bickerstaff had some interesting comments as it related to what he wants to do with them. And let's just take notes first to see what they are. But what do you believe should happen to put Cade and Jaden in their best positions to succeed?
I'm going to say you start with a stagger and see where you are after it. It's just, we've seen it before. It's worked sometimes. It hasn't worked other times. You don't know what you have with the new additions. I would rather try out the new additions and see if those are better pairings. And then if not, you can go back to Ivy and Cunningham. But just to make it a given and say from day one that that's what you're going to go with, I think you want to look at something else because of the history.
Yeah, definitely, man. That was concise, because I know there's a lot of people who are still attached to Jaden Ivey. They still believe in who he is. And the one distinction we wanted to be able to make is that I don't believe that if you bring him off of the bench, as long as you're giving him the proper playing time in a proper role, that's not disrespect or giving up Jaden Ivey. That's giving him one of the more important roles on a team that generally is going to be considered a playoff contender. And that's not just depth off the bench, but having high-level players that you can bring in, and you're not seeing as big a drop-off when you go to that guy off the bench, especially when you're talking about no more all-bench lineups. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I have a sense that ultimately it's going to be a situation where the stagger is Jaden Ivey off the bench, and you really, really, really get a lot more of those kind of certified shooters around Cade Cunningham in that starting lineup. But
right, and it's not a platoon thing either, because we're talking about when some of those 6-man and when Osar comes in, so you can stagger it in such a way that he doesn't necessarily play with Cade, but he does on that end of the second kind of rotation when before Cade goes out, he has a few minutes with Jaden there. So it's not a complete, they're not going to play together. It's just the amount of minutes and what those lineups look like when they do play together.
Yep. And you know what? And this ultimately, it was one of, like, to me, the most important question. And it led into this question of the Detroit Pistons. How much better are they? Because a lot of people are being, let's say they're being conservative of what they believe that this squad can do. Vegas, I've seen the over-under set at 24.5. I've seen them set as high as 26.5. But is it something where we should be expecting more than 24 wins with this Detroit Pistons team? Or do we take the last 2 years into account, regardless of what the young players are supposed to do to take a step forward and the free agent additions and the new coaching staff here as well? Should that give them more than 10 wins over last year?
No, I think you look at the last 4 years and you say, how many times have they gone over 24.5 for the last 4? And that gives you an indicator. People can be a little bit bullish about this team because the roster on paper has been a lot better than the results have been. I think they're going to be at least marginally better. Can they get to 28? I think that's about where I am. Is, again, you're doubling what you had last season, the win total. And Vegas looks at, hey, crap just happens. Injuries happen. Trades happen. Other things happen. I think 24, if I were a better, I would say over the 24, but then I said the same thing for the last 3 or 4 years too, and I probably would have lost all of those. So it is very much on paper, which is all we can go on right now. You like what they've added. I like Tobias Harris as an addition. In Vegas, Tim Hardaway was there sitting next to him, next to Cade on the bench, and was kind of giving him the, hey, this is your team, we're really here to support you kind of conversation. And talk to Cade as well, and Cade is happy with these other three-point shooters around him. It's just more weapons that he gets to be more of himself. And we talked about this. He needs to have that in order to be successful, but he likes the leadership that they brought in to kind of augment the other things that they've done.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You talk about Cade Cunningham, a.k.a. Cade Cunningham. Hey. You want to keep him happy. And they talked about the fact, obviously at the exit interviews, he was asked, hey, are you somebody that wants to be involved, and are you hoping that the organization at least talks to you about their direction moving forward? And so it's cool to know that he is happy about what this team has done, at least at this stage of trying to move things forward. And I know what all Pistons fans want. And the same thing with the Tigers. Kind of the same nuanced question we were talking about earlier. Even if they miss out on the playoffs, is this a foundation worth believing in? That's going to be the question that the Pistons have to answer this year. Is this a foundation worth believing in? Because we've seen them attempt this recipe before, but this time it looks like it has the prospects of working out much better because you got vets who want to be here, vets who are going to play. It's not like, okay, we know when Bojan plays, he could be a microwave, but he doesn't really play. And you got a Tobias Harris as well, who is a much better defender at that same 3-4 position than Bojan Bogdanovic was. So this team, it definitely has some things that I believe makes me much more bullish. Part of me, I'm wondering, because the question was, are we stoked, not scared, or are we scared, not stoked, if we pick under 25 wins? For me personally, I'm kind of in that 25 to 30 range, just like Matthew Broder now. Where are you at with these Pistons overall?
I think it's going to be in that 25 to 30. I'm going to say 28 is my number. I really think that's it. Yeah, but if you look at Ron Holland and Bobby Clinton and you say, hey, those are two more pieces that maybe we didn't think were rotation guys. there were enough indications from Summer League that say, hey, maybe we have two other pieces here. And I think I said this before. Don't rule out something else happening before the season starts. Like, this rotation has too many guys in it who can play that you wouldn't be able to trade something and get something else, to improve at some other spot. And I'm not saying it's Ivy, but something like that. I think the conditions are right for another move to be made.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Ron Holland, because we've seen a summer league from him. We know we've all, as Pistons fans, made projections for what we think that he could be based off of what he did in high school and then in the G League. How much do you expect Ron Holland to contribute for this Pistons team this season?
If everything stays the same, I don't think he'll contribute a ton. But the difference was I went into Summer League not saying he has to be this. We've done that in the past. We're saying Jaden Ivey has to be this. Asar Thompson has to be this because they have to play key roles in the rotation or in the starting lineup. I went into Summer League saying, Ron Holland, just show me what you can do. I don't have any expectations that you're going to be a great three-point shooter or just show me that what we saw in the G League, there's something of that there and that you're ready to play on a pro level with other NBA-type players. First game didn't do that 5 for 15 from the field, but the next games after that, he showed the athleticism, he showed the decision-making, he showed he was active around the ball on both ends of the court. Those are things to build off of. So I think the expectation for me was just, I want to see what you have with no pressure and no expectation going in. Just be a good basketball player, and I think I saw that.
Yeah, that's what I absolutely loved about Ron Holland as well. And you made a great point there too, Rod, as it relates to the usage. Obviously in Summer League, he's going to have everything on his shoulders. When he gets to the Pistons, one of the things that's different about this kind of batch of rookies, you said it, Rod, they don't have the weight of the world on their shoulders. So it's going to be interesting to see how they develop and if they're able to contribute with a lot less stress more consistently to this lineup. What up, though, KG?
Yeah, hey, Rod, and apologize to everybody for the audio issues, but I wanted to ask you about Jalen Duren. In your opinion, what does JB Bickerstaff and his coaching staff need to do in order to get the most out of Jalen Duren? Of course, defensively is a big issue, but maybe offensively as well, maybe things around the basket. What can they do to get the most out of Jalen Duren this season?
I think they just have to lean into his strengths, and we've seen what Duren can do in the pick and roll with Cade. I think they've got to do a lot more of that, and he's coming from an environment with Evan Mobley, so it's I won't say similar type of player, but athletic, big, that you can work with, who you can draw plays up for, and he's going to finish around the rim. You just got to put him in positions of strength. You can't have him doing, and what he talked about before was the defense. Defense isn't on one person. It's about the scheme that you're running and funneling players to that big who can then be his best self. I think it's a team defensive perspective and philosophy that they're going to start turning to, because you don't want to put one person on an island. And if they get beat, if the guards get beat on the perimeter, well, now you're counting on Duren to protect the basket or Stewart, and that's just not fair for them when they've got another big they've got to keep a body on too. I think you're going to see some different defensive principles.
That's a good question. And you know what, Rod? We didn't start this thing off the right way either, because I usually like to make sure we do Rod's thoughts, but I just want to make sure. Is there any other questions for Rod?
I think I'm good. I want to know about.
I need those Rod's thoughts.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Rod.
No, I think the takeaway that I have from Summer League and just what I've seen is that we thought that Marcus Sasser was just going to be a serviceable backup point guard. I think there's a need now to go get a point guard. We've seen that he isn't necessarily the end-all, be-all there, and if anything happened to Cade or if anything happened to Sasser, you really don't have another point guard that you can just rely on and say, carry me through this. And so it may be something else that, again, you go out and you sign somebody else. They do have another roster spot. They do have a little bit of cap space that they can work with. But I think that's a definite need now. I thought it was a position you could go and fill, but now I would say it's a need.
No, Rod, and now that you
said a name, huh?
Yeah. Speaking of Summer League, because we talked about Ron Holland, you just mentioned Marcus Sasser. I wanted to ask you about Bobby Klintman, because he has a skill set. He impressed, I think, the majority of us who watched him. I think all of us who watched him. Is Bobby Klintman a legitimate NBA rotational player? I'm not saying this year, but do you think he projects to be that? And do you project that he is that with our Detroit Pistons?
I think he can be that. I think he's a guy that if you want to put him in the G League, you can more than capably do that. The passing was so impressive about his game. He didn't take over games, which is maybe what I wanted to see. We'll say, well, hey, maybe he can be in Detroit and be on the bench somewhere. But again, you have so many rotation players. You have a rotation of 11, probably 10 or 11 of guys that are currently on the roster that I think makes that a hard choice. Maybe he starts with the crews and then he works his way up if something else is done. But I think he has a good future because when you look at where he was drafted, you can see why they made that trade and saw some opportunity there, that he has a good skill set.
Yep, and you know what? The foundation of this team right now, from the front office to the coaching to even new players, new vets on the squad, everything from a leadership standpoint has been kind of flipped over. And I know that you were down at Vegas Summer League as well. I got to talk to some scouts and some other organizational personnel. Did you get any opportunity to get a feel for what they think about the Detroit Pistons? Because I actually got a lot of optimism from some of these people.
Yeah, the people I've talked to have said the same thing, is that getting Tobias was a huge deal. Getting Tim Hardaway is a huge deal, not just from the on-the-court shooting perspective, but veteran leadership. Cade is going to be Cade. But we saw before, when you give him a good three-point shooter on the wing, when you give him the rest of those guys some veteran leadership, that's what's going to make the difference in this team. You don't have to count on Cade every time down the floor. You have options. You have better rotations. All of that is going to kind of come together to make a difference here, that Malik Beasley can shoot from three. You don't have to start him. I think they might, but you don't have to. And last year there were so many questions about, well, are you starting Iver? Are you starting somebody else? Or what are the other things that we're dealing with? You don't have these decisions that you have to make about particular players right now like they did with Killian. You can move straight ahead and say, this is our roster. These are the guys that we're working with.
Yeah, right. And I wanted to ask you also about Asar Thompson. What can we realistically expect from Asar? Of course, last year shooting 14% from three. You know, that's a non-starter. We can't have that. They did hire Fred Vincent, but I imagine it will take some time before we really see the results of, Fred Vincent working with him on his three-point jump shot. But what's a realistic expectation for Asar Thompson? And is he somebody that, because his defense is so good, that you consider maybe putting in the starting lineup again?
Yeah, I think he is the big X factor in all of this, because he could very well start. If his three-point percentage gets up to 30, it changes the calculus on how you kind of run some things because of that defensive presence. So I think it's just going to be, as you get into training camp in the beginning of the season, which Asar is showing up. Is it the guy who can shoot just marginally from three and he's okay? Or is it a guy who is still struggling? And hopefully the medical conditions are all cleared up, and he's been cleared to return. He already started working out, and they said he's already been working with Fred Vincent. So those are just the big question marks. I think that's the biggest thing. Does he start, or does he come off the bench, presumably with Ivy? There's so many configurations of things you can do, but I think you need some kind of defensive presence with that three-point shooting to tie it all together.
Yeah. Hey, Rod, do you have a little bit of time to talk some Lions with us in this next segment?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Hey, that's dope. That's dope. That is dope. I can't wait. I got to tell you guys first about Swiss Insurance. Now more than ever, it is critical for you to have your insurance reviewed.